A millionaire was ashamed of his wife and took his mistress to a lavish party. But when he got there, what he saw shocked him. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on more exciting stories like this one, and like the video to keep watching. The loud music echoed through the room, a sophisticated melody that mixed elegance and ostentation. The clink of champagne glasses, the restrained laughter of the guests and the golden glow of the lamps created the perfect atmosphere of absolute luxury. Everything was impeccable, designed to impress. But at that moment, William heard nothing. His gaze was fixed on the stage, where a soft light illuminated Vanessa. She was laughing, surrounded by admiring glances, as if she were the center of the universe, the lover he proudly displayed like a glittering trophy. The tight red dress highlighted her curves, and the diamond earrings reflected the lights in the room, making her look even more stunning. She knew she was wanted, and that filled her with satisfaction. "Are you all right?" Vanessa asked, sliding her fingers up his arm. William blinked a few times, pushing away any strange thoughts. "Yes, of course," he murmured. But his voice wavered. He should have been pleased. After all, everything around him reflected his rise. The party was a demonstration of power, a reminder that he had reached the top. Influential guests, powerful businessmen, investors who trusted him blindly. He was a respected man, and now he was next to a woman who symbolized status and desire. So, why couldn't the discomfort go away? A strange sensation began to spread through his chest, as if something was out of place, something wrong, a persistent shadow that he couldn't ignore. And that's when it happened. The main door to the hall opened. At first no one noticed, but for William time seemed to slow down. His eyes fixed on the entrance and his body went rigid. She was there. Helena, the woman he had spent years avoiding showing in public. The wife who had always made him feel uncomfortable, not because of who she was, but because of what she represented. A past that he wanted to erase. She didn't fit the image he had built for himself. She was too simple, too ordinary. Or at least that's what he believed. Because now, looking at her under the golden lights of that hall, William felt his stomach sink. Helena didn't look like the faded woman he had left behind. She was radiant. The black and gold dress, without exaggeration or excessive sparkle, glided over her body with a natural elegance. Her hair fell in soft waves, and her eyes shone with a confidence he had never seen before. But what really struck him wasn't her appearance. It was the way she walked in. Alone, as if there wasn't a single reason to hesitate. As if that was where she belonged. People began to notice her presence. Murmurs broke out among the guests. Some looked at her with surprise, others with curiosity, and there were those who frowned, trying to remember where they had seen her before. Helena didn't smile. She didn't try to attract attention. She was simply there, and that was enough to make all eyes gravitate towards her. William felt a chill run down his spine. What was she doing there? Why did she seem so different? Next to him, Vanessa also noticed the change in atmosphere. Her fingers gripped his arm tighter. Who is that? The question was loaded with something William couldn't quite define. Jealousy? Insecurity? He didn't answer. His heart was pounding as he watched Helena cross the hall, each step filled with a confidence he had never imagined she could have. He knew this woman, or at least he thought he did. But the Helena in front of him was not the faded wife he had left behind. She wasn't the woman who accepted being pushed aside, who settled for scraps of attention while he paraded around with Vanessa at events like that. The woman in front of him was a force he had never seen before, and that terrified him. Helena stopped near the bar, her posture impeccable. All eyes were on her, and one of the waiters hurried to serve her. She took the glass of champagne with delicacy, but unlike Vanessa, she didn't bother to look dazzling. It was natural, and perhaps that was what made it impossible to look away. "William?" Vanessa insisted, her voice laced with suspicion. "Who is this woman?" He sniffed, trying to regain control of his expression. "No one." It was a mistake to say that, because in the next instant, Helena's eyes met his, and she smiled. It wasn't a smile of greeting, nor a sweet or embarrassed smile. It was a smile that said, "I know who I am, and now you do too." William felt a shiver run down his spine. She knew exactly what she was doing. The room seemed to get smaller. The air became thick. The noise of the party, once a melody of voices and music, was now a distant murmur. Something was about to happen, and William could feel it. But what? And above all, what did Helena want with that apparition? William turned to the nearest waiter and picked up a glass of whiskey, drinking it in one gulp. He needed something strong. He needed to regain control of the situation. But how, when he felt he was about to lose everything? He remembered the day he made the decision to cut Helena out of his public life. At first, she was always by his side, believing they were a team. She attended dinners, smiled at investors, did everything to help him grow. But over time, William began to feel that she didn't fit into that world. Helena was simple. She didn't wear designer clothes like Vanessa. She didn't master the social codes of that superficial elite. She talked about dreams and purpose when the others only wanted to talk about money and power. He was annoyed by this, and one day he simply stopped taking her. He told himself it was for the best, that Helena was a reminder of the past that he'd outgrown. But now she was there. And she didn't seem the least bit out of place. "She's on her way here," Vanessa whispered next to him, her tone heavy with tension. William swallowed. And indeed, Helena began to cross the hall. The guests made room for her, as if her presence demanded respect. Some of the city's most powerful businessmen greeted her, as if they already knew her. But how? Helena stopped in front of him. The silence between them was unbearable. William tried to say something, but the words wouldn't come. And then, before he could process anything, another voice cut through the air. "Helena, what a wonderful surprise!" William turned and saw one of the most influential men in the financial sector, Daniel Foster, approaching with a broad smile. Daniel was someone William had been trying to impress for years, but had always felt that he was one step below the respect he wanted to win. And now, he was treating Helena as if they were old acquaintances. "Daniel," she replied naturally. "I didn't expect to find you here. I should say the same. You've been a big name lately. I've heard about the projects you're leading. Amazing what you've been doing." William frowned. "What projects?" "You're very kind," Helena smiled. "There's still a lot of work to be done." "Well, you need to tell me more about it. Will you sit with us?" William felt a lump in his throat. "What do you mean, sit with us?" Daniel Foster, the man who had never seen him as an equal, was now inviting Helena to his table. Vanessa noticed William's discomfort and squeezed his arm. "What's going on?" she whispered. "Who is she, and how does she know Daniel Foster?" William couldn't answer, and then, as if the night's surprises weren't enough, a new man approached. He was tall, with a firm gaze that was at the same time tender. His impeccable suit and confident posture indicated that he wasn't just anyone. Helena turned to him and smiled. "James," she said softly. William felt a chill cut through his chest. The man held Helena's hand, bringing it to his lips in a gesture of respect and affection. "I was looking for you," James said, without taking his eyes off her. "I was beginning to think you weren't coming." Helena laughed. "I would never miss an evening like this." William felt the cup in his hand shake. Who the hell was this man? And why did he talk to Helena as if he knew her intimately? The ground seemed to have disappeared from under William's feet. Nothing made sense. Helena, the woman he had hidden from the world, was now being celebrated by influential people. She was no longer invisible, and even worse, she wasn't alone. James slid his hand down her back with irritating familiarity, guiding her towards the table where Daniel Foster stood. Helena followed him, without looking back. She didn't look at William for a second longer. And then he realized, this woman was no longer the wife he had underestimated. Helena had changed. And worst of all, she didn't need him anymore. William felt a bitter taste in his mouth. He had lost Helena, but he wanted her back. Only now, it might be too late. Vanessa couldn't hide her discomfort. From the moment that mysterious woman had entered the party, William had changed completely. His gaze never left her. His expression oscillated between shock, confusion, and something else. something that Vanessa didn't want to admit, but that tightened in her chest like a chain about to suffocate her. She needed to know. "William, who is this woman?" Her voice came out sharper than she had intended. He hesitated, clutching the glass in his hand. He didn't want to say, but his silence was enough for Vanessa to understand. "My God," she whispered, narrowing her eyes. "It's your wife or ex-wife. I don't even know anymore, do I?" William closed his eyes for a moment. He didn't want that truth to come out loud because it seemed to make it more real. "Ex-wife," he corrected, with a firmness he didn't feel. Vanessa crossed her arms, looking at Helena once more. Now it all made sense. The discomfort, William's petrified look, the awkward silence that fell between them, and worst of all, the way he couldn't take his eyes off her. Vanessa gritted her teeth. "Let's go," she said. William blinked, taking his eyes off Helena for the first time in minutes. "I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to stay here anymore." "Let's go, William." He hesitated. Part of him wanted to stay. He wanted to understand how Helena had changed so much. He wanted to observe more, listen more, find out what had happened in her life. But Vanessa was already picking up her bag, clearly irritated. People were beginning to notice the tension between them. He couldn't afford to create a scandal. With one last glance in Helena's direction, who was now laughing at something James had said, without even noticing that William was watching her, he gave in. "Fine," he said, trying to hide his frustration. The two of them left the party in silence. William couldn't sleep. The clock on the living room wall read 2:45 a.m., but he was still there on the sofa, staring at the ceiling. Vanessa was asleep in the bedroom, or at least pretending to be. After they got home, she realized how distracted he was and tried to talk, but the conversation soon turned into an interrogation, and he lost patience. "That's enough, Vanessa. I don't want to talk about this." "Of course you don't," she retorted, "because you're still thinking about her." He ignored her and went down to the sofa. Now, alone in the darkness of the living room, William felt empty, as if something was out of place. How had Helena changed so much? He couldn't stop thinking about her. Her confident posture, her assured gaze, the way she didn't seem to need him anymore. It bothered him more than it should have. And then there was James. William closed his eyes, remembering the scene when he had laid his hand on Helena's lower back. The gesture was subtle, but full of meaning, as if he was used to touching her like that. He felt a tightening in his chest. Helena was with another man. And for the first time, William realized that perhaps she was truly happy, without him. Dawn came, but sleep never came. Still on the sofa, his eyes red and his mind spinning, William heard Vanessa's footsteps coming down the stairs. She stopped in the middle of the room, looking at him with an irritated expression. "Didn't you sleep?" He ran a hand over his face, exhausted. "I couldn't." Vanessa crossed her arms, impatient. "Why were you thinking about her?" William snorted, irritated. "Vanessa, don't start." "Oh, it won't start." She laughed humorlessly. "I saw the way you looked at her, William. You were mesmerized. You didn't even seem to remember that I was standing next to you." He got up from the sofa, rubbing the back of his neck. "I'm just trying to understand." "Trying to understand what?" she interrupted. "How did the woman you dumped manage to move on without you? How is she more beautiful, more confident, more desirable than ever?" He stopped, staring at Vanessa with his face closed. She took a step forward. "It hurts to see that she's better now, doesn't it? I don't want to talk about it." Vanessa let out a sarcastic laugh. "Of course you don't. Because if you talk about it, you'll have to admit what you're feeling." William looked at her, furious. "Vanessa, enough! Enough, nothing!" she exploded. "I deserve to know the truth, William. How do you feel about her?" He opened his mouth to answer, but then, without realizing it, without even being able to control it, he said the worst possible thing. "Helena, The silence was deadly. Vanessa's eyes widened. The look of shock on her face made William's heart stop for a second. He realized what he had done. He'd called Vanessa by the wrong name, Helena's name. She blinked as if trying to process the stab she had just taken. "What? Vanessa, You called me Helena." The air between them became heavy. Vanessa felt her stomach sink. Tears gathered in her eyes, but she wouldn't let him see them. I'm an idiot, she muttered, shaking her head. Vanessa, wait. She was already reaching for her bag. No, William. I've waited too long. I waited for you all night. I waited for you to tell me that everything was fine. I waited for you to say that she meant nothing. But now I see. You never got over her, did you? He tried to hold her by the arm, but she let go. Vanessa burst out of the front door, slamming it hard. William ran after her. Vanessa, please listen to me. But she was already inside the car. He banged on the window, desperate. Let me explain. She started the engine. Before accelerating, she lowered the window just enough for her voice to come out. I should have known before. And then, without looking back, she drove off. William stood on the sidewalk, watching the car disappear over the horizon. Now he was alone, and for the first time in years, that scared him. The cold morning wind nipped at his skin, but he didn't move. His mind was spinning, trying to take in everything that had happened. Vanessa was gone. And worst of all, he hadn't even managed to stop her. It wasn't about Vanessa, it never had been. He ran his hands over his face, feeling the exhaustion weighing on his shoulders. Since the party, he hadn't been able to rest for a second. Helena's face invaded his thoughts without permission, haunting him. Who was that woman he saw that night? Because it wasn't the same Helena he had left behind years ago. It wasn't the submissive, shy woman who accepted being invisible. No. That Helena was someone else, and that terrified him. He went back into the house and threw himself on the sofa. The silence in the apartment seemed suffocating. William had always liked control, knowing exactly where things stood, having power over his own life and over those around him. But now he felt like he was adrift. He needed to know. He picked up his cell phone and typed Helena Sullivan into the search bar. What he found made him hold his breath. News, articles, interviews. Helena appeared in business magazines, in articles about entrepreneurship and innovation. There was even a video of her speaking at a high-profile corporate event. William clicked on the video. The screen lit up with her image, wearing an elegant suit, her hair loose in impeccable waves, holding a microphone with a confidence he had never seen before. The biggest mistake anyone can make is to believe that they need someone else to be complete. I believed that. I let my identity be erased to fit into someone else's world. But one day I realized that I didn't need to be a piece in anyone else's puzzle. I could build my own empire. The audience applauded. William felt a knot in his stomach. He had never known that Helena had such potential. He never saw her that way. To him, she was always just Helena, the woman by his side, the wife he could keep in the shadows while he shone alone. But there, before his eyes, was the proof that she had never needed him, and maybe she was better off without him. Her gaze fell on a name in the article below the video. Sullivan Digital Marketing. William's heart raced. Helena hadn't just rebuilt her life. She had created a company, and not just any company. One of the most promising on the market. After all, he knew how that world worked. Helena hadn't just entered the game, she had become a key player in it. And he never knew. His throat went dry. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would never have believed it. Helena looked out of her office window, observing the skyscrapers that made up the luxurious view of New York. The reflection in the glass showed a different woman from the one she had once been. Her eyes were full of determination, her posture erect, confident. She was at the top now. The journey had not been easy. After stepping out of William's shadow, Helena felt that her identity had been shattered. Who was she without him? What would she do with her life without being a millionaire's wife? For months, she felt lost, without direction. But then something changed. She realized that she had always had something that William had never seen: intelligence. Helena had always been passionate about communication, about understanding how brands spoke to their audiences. For years, she helped William behind the scenes, structuring ideas, suggesting strategies, but he never gave her credit. He never recognized that behind many of his victories was her mind. Then one day, she made a decision. If William couldn't see her value, the world would. She started from scratch. She took everything she had learned over the years and created Sullivan Digital Marketing, an agency aimed at companies that needed a fresh start, just like her. And ironically, the same entrepreneurs who had previously ignored her now came to her for help. The phone rang, snapping her out of her thoughts. "Helena Sullivan, good morning." The voice on the other end was familiar. "Helena, it's me." Her body tensed. "William." The silence between them lasted a few seconds. Helena hadn't expected that call, but maybe it was inevitable. Helena held the phone tightly, without showing any apparent emotion. William, on the other end of the line, hesitated. He didn't know exactly what to say. He didn't have a plan. He just dialed the number without thinking, driven by something that even he didn't understand. "I know it's been a while," he began, his voice low, controlled. "But I wanted to talk to you." Helena took a deep breath. "About what?" He was silent for a moment. He hadn't expected her voice to sound so distant, as if he were just another acquaintance and not the man with whom she had shared years of her life. "About us." Her laugh was soft, almost ironic. "William, there is no us anymore." Her every word was a stab. He should have seen it coming. He abandoned her. He had ignored her. And now she was different, unrecognizable. But still, a part of him couldn't accept it. "I know I've made mistakes," he said, pressing the phone. "But can't we—" "No." Helena cut him off, without hesitation. Silence. William had never been rejected like that. He always had control over everything, over his business, his image, over the women around him. But Helena no longer seemed like someone who could be controlled. "I just want to understand what happened to you," he said at last. Helena sighed. "What happened to me?" "I opened my eyes, William. That's it." His heart beat harder. He wanted to insist. He wanted to say that things didn't have to be this way, that they could start again. But before he could say anything, Helena ended the call. William held the phone to his ear, listening only to the silence on the other end of the line. She really had cut him out of her life, but he couldn't accept that. Helena put the phone back on the table and closed her eyes for a moment. She shouldn't have answered it. Not because she had feelings for William, but because he didn't deserve any explanation. He was the one who had thrown her out of his life, as if she were disposable weight. Now, after seeing her at the top, he was trying to get closer, but it was too late. She picked up her cup of coffee and walked over to the office window. The New York skyline stretched out in front of her, imposing. This was her world now. No longer a shadow, no longer someone waiting to be noticed. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the door opening. "Are you all right?" James's voice echoed softly. She turned, meeting his calm gaze. James was different. He always knew how to give her space, always saw her as a partner and not as someone who needed to be molded. She smiled. "Yes, just a phone call from the past." James arched an eyebrow, curious. "William?" Helena nodded. He sighed, crossing his arms. "And what did he want?" "Honestly, I don't even know. He made a point of saying that he wanted to talk about us, but that us hasn't existed for a long time." James smiled sideways. He'd finally realized what he'd lost. Helena didn't answer. Because deep down she knew James was right. William never thought she would really leave. He never believed that she could become something without him. But now, seeing her at the top, he wanted to understand. He wanted to find answers that no longer mattered. James approached, taking her hand. "Do you want to talk about it?" She shook her head. "No. It's in the past." James squeezed her hand gently. "Then let's focus on the present. We have an important meeting in an hour." Helena smiled. "Let's go." She followed at his side, leaving William where he belonged, behind. William couldn't get her out of his mind. He wanted to let go. He wanted to get on with his life. But something inside him wouldn't let him. Helena had become an enigma, and William had always hated mysteries that he couldn't solve. So the next morning he found himself driving aimlessly, his mind still stuck on that damn phone call. That's when he passed the coffee shop near her office. His heart raced. There she was, sitting by the window, a coffee in her hands, a smile on her lips as she talked to James. Anger rose in her throat like fire. What was he doing? Why was he there? He didn't know, but what he did next was unplanned. He parked the car and walked into the cafeteria. Helena hadn't seen him yet, but in seconds she would. And at that moment, everything would change. The bell on the cafe door sounded as William entered. The smell of freshly brewed coffee and hot bread filled the room, but he felt nothing. His gaze was fixed on the woman sitting by the window. Helena. She was laughing softly, a twinkle in her eyes as she talked to James. Her smile was light, natural, something William couldn't remember seeing in the last few years of their marriage. As if away from him, she had finally found peace. And then, as if sensing his presence, she turned her face. Her eyes met his. The smile disappeared. For a moment, no one moved. James also sensed William's presence and slowly turned to face him. But unlike William had expected, he showed no negative reaction, no jealousy, no concern. He simply looked at Helena and asked, his voice calm, "Do you want me to stay?" She took a deep breath, keeping her gaze on William for a moment. Then she turned to James and smiled slightly. "It's all right." James nodded. He picked up his coffee, stood up and placed a soft kiss on her forehead before saying, "See you later." And then he walked past William without so much as a second glance. It hit him in a way he hadn't expected. James didn't feel threatened by him. And that meant only one thing. Helena was no longer his. William swallowed and approached the table. She kept her posture firm, without showing any fragility. He sat down opposite her, trying to find the right words. "You don't seem surprised," he said at last. She put her cup down on the table and folded her hands. "I'm not the type to be easily surprised." Her tone was calm, but sharp as a blade. William ran a hand through his hair, nervous. "I needed to talk to you," Helena sighed. "You already did, in that phone call. Not the way I wanted." She arched an eyebrow, waiting for him to continue. William took a deep breath. "I made a mistake, Helena." She didn't say anything. He continued, "I was a coward. You were always by my side, you always supported me, and I hid from you. I belittled you, and only now that I see you like this, do I realize what I've lost." She tilted her head slightly, as if analyzing his every word. "William, let me ask you a question." Her voice was soft but firm. "If that night, at that party, I had appeared like the Helena from before, the one who waited for you at home, who stayed in the shade, would you be here now?" His silence was answer enough. Helena smiled slightly. "I don't blame you. I really don't. You were exactly who you always were. I'm the one who's changed." William felt his heart squeeze. "I wanted a second chance," he murmured. Helena laughed quietly, shaking her head. "Second chance? William, we both know that this story is over." He closed his eyes, feeling the weight of those words. "But what if I tell you that I love you?" Her smile crumbled. For a moment William had hope, but then Helena picked up her bag and stood up. "If you really loved me, you would have loved me when I was still by your side." He felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. Helena looked at him with compassion, but without hesitation. "I hope you find what you're looking for, but it won't be with me." She took a step back, took a deep breath, and said, in a gentle but definitive tone, "Go after Vanessa while there's still time. Because I'm no longer an option for you." And then, without looking back, she left the cafe. William sat there, unable to move. He had never felt so empty. The people around him went on with their lives. The barista called out customers' names. The city outside moved on. But inside him, everything seemed paralyzed. He had lost her. This time. Forever. His chest ached in a way he had never imagined it would. What would he do now? Desperate, he picked up the phone and opened his contact list. Vanessa's name flashed up on the screen. He stared at the number, unsure if he should call. But what if Helena was right? What if Vanessa was the only person who could still be there for him? His finger hovered over the screen. And then, Vanessa. She was his last chance not to sink completely. The last person who might still be able to forgive him. But did she want to? Was there still room for him in her life after what had happened? He ran a hand through his hair, trying to ignore the tightness in his chest. He could still smell Helena's perfume in the air, the sound of her voice, the firmness of her words echoing in his mind. "I'm no longer an option for you." The blow was sure. This time, there was no turning back. She moved on, with James, with her company, with her new life. He squeezed his eyes shut, trying to contain his frustration. Just a few days ago, William believed he had the world in his hands, that Helena would always be there, waiting, in the same place where he had left her. But now, everything seemed to fall apart. His fingers slid across the screen, and before he could hesitate, he pressed the call button. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Each second increased the anxiety in her chest. "So, what do you want, William?" Vanessa's voice sounded on the other end of the line, cold, distant. He took a deep breath. "I need to see you," she laughed humorlessly. "Now you do, don't you? And where was that need when I left?" William closed his eyes, feeling the weight of his own guilt. "Vanessa, I made a mistake." A silence. He heard breathing on the other side, but couldn't predict his reaction. "You've only just realized it?" He hesitated. "I didn't know what I wanted." "And now you do?" The question was simple, but the answer wasn't. William felt his throat tighten. He wanted to say yes, that he understood everything now. But did he? Or did he just not want to be alone? "Can we talk?" His voice sounded lower, more hesitant than he would have liked. Vanessa was silent for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was heavy with fatigue. "I don't know if there's anything left to talk about, William. Please." Another pause. Then a sigh from the other end of the line. "Tomorrow at 8, at the restaurant where we met. But don't expect anything from me." And then the line went silent. William held the phone, feeling a knot in his stomach. He wanted to believe that there was still hope, that he could repair at least some of the damage he had caused, but for the first time in his life, he wasn't sure of anything. That night, sleep didn't come. He lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, reliving every mistake, every choice, trying to find a way back, but maybe there was no way back. And the next day he would discover the truth. Time seemed to drag on. The night was long, restless. William rolled over in bed countless times, trying to find a comfort that didn't come. Every time he closed his eyes, Helena's face appeared in his mind. The firm tone of her voice, the certainty with which she said that he was no longer an option. It ate him up inside, but now there was nothing he could do. Helena had moved on. He had to accept that, or at least try. It was strange to realize that he was no longer part of her life. For so long he had thought that his presence was essential, that even when he wasn't by her side, somehow she still belonged to him. But no, Helena was no longer his, not his shadow, not his memory. She had rebuilt her own identity without needing him for anything, and that was what hurt the most. He forced himself to stop thinking about her. Now he needed to focus on something else. Vanessa, the woman who at that moment could give him a chance. But did he really want her? Or was he just trying to fill the void that Helena had left? This doubt haunted him all night, and when the sun finally rose, he realized that he hadn't found any answers. He got up, took a long shower, and chose an elegant but discreet outfit. He didn't want to look like he was trying to impress Vanessa, but he didn't want to arrive looking sloppy either. He needed to be confident, even if he was a complete mess inside. He arrived at the restaurant at 8 o'clock sharp. The place was the same as years ago, when he and Vanessa had met for the first time. Back then, she was a woman who didn't accept less than she deserved. And now, after everything that had happened, he didn't know if he would still have any space in her life. He sat at the table by the window, watching the busy city streets. Time passed slowly, each minute weighing on his shoulders. She was late. 5 minutes. Then 10. 15. With each passing second, the unease grew inside him. Would she come? Or had he lost her too? William pressed his lips together, trying to ignore the suffocating feeling in his chest. But deep down, he knew. Maybe this time, he really was alone. His cell phone vibrated on the table, snapping William out of his thoughts. He hurriedly picked it up, feeling a momentary relief. Vanessa. For a moment he thought the message would be something like, "Sorry I'm late, I'm coming." But his chest tightened when he saw that the text said something completely different. "William, I'm not coming. I spent the night thinking and I realized that this wouldn't be fair to me or to you. I think you need more time to understand what you really want out of life. I know that right now you feel lost. But I can't be the one to rescue you. You need to do that on your own. I'm going to get on with my life and I hope that one day you'll find your way. I'm sorry for everything. Vanessa." The screen seemed to blur. William reread the message several times, as if the words could change at any moment, as if it wasn't real. But it was. She wasn't coming. There were no more chances. He dropped his cell phone on the table, feeling the weight of reality crush him. In a matter of a few days, everything he had believed to be under his control had crumbled before his eyes. Helena had moved on. Vanessa had refused to be his second choice. And now, he was alone. He felt his chest tighten, a mixture of frustration, regret, and above all, fear. For the first time in years, he didn't know who he was without someone by his side. He had spent his whole life building up an image of success. Expensive clothes, lavish parties, stunning women. He always had everything he wanted, or at least he thought he did. But now, without Helena, without Vanessa, without anyone waiting for him at home, what was left? He sat back in his chair, leaning his elbows on the table. The waiter approached. "Sir, can I take your order?" William looked around, seeing couples chatting, friends laughing, people going about their lives. No one there cared that his world was falling apart. He shook his head. "No thanks." He paid for the coffee he hadn't even ordered and left the restaurant. Outside, the icy New York wind cut into his skin, but he didn't care. He started walking aimlessly, letting his feet carry him. For the first time, he was in no hurry to get anywhere. He needed to think. He needed to understand. How had he gotten to this point? When did he become a man incapable of keeping someone by his side? His mind took him back to Helena. He remembered the first years of their marriage. She was brilliant, full of dreams, full of ideas. At first, he admired her. He liked listening to her talk about her projects, about her desire to do something great. But then, as his own ambition grew, he stopped seeing her. Helena became just a part of his life. Someone who was there but who didn't need to be heard. He pushed her away without even realizing it, and now that she was glowing, he realized it was one of the biggest mistakes of his life. She was never small. He made her look that way. And Vanessa. Vanessa came into his life when Helena was no longer there. At first it was exciting. She was intense, demanding, passionate, but now he saw that deep down, Vanessa just wanted to be truly loved. And what about him? He treated her as a distraction. Now neither of them was there anymore, and he had to accept that. He walked for hours, aimlessly. For the first time, he felt the weight of his own decisions. What really mattered? Money? Status? The women? Or was it something he had never valued until now? He stopped in front of a park, watching a mother playing with her little boy. They were laughing, running around on the grass, not caring about anything other than that moment. William felt a tightness in his chest. When was the last time he had enjoyed something so simple? He had always been so focused on the future, so obsessed with power and recognition that he never realized what he was missing in the present. Maybe it was time for a change. Maybe it was time to start from scratch, but this time alone. He picked up his cell phone. He stared at the screen, not sure who to call. Helena? No. Vanessa? Also no. For the first time, there was no one to turn to. And then he did something he had never done before. He dialed a number and waited. After a few seconds, a voice on the other end of the line answered. "William? What a surprise." He took a deep breath. "Hi, Mom. Can we talk?" The woman on the other end hesitated for a moment, surprised by the unexpected call. "Of course, dear. Is everything all right?" William looked at the horizon, feeling a knot unravel inside him. "I think it's finally starting to." Standing there in the square, he talked to his mother for a while. He hung up and started walking again, this time in no hurry, this time willing to find something that no amount of money could buy. Himself. The end.
I hope you enjoyed this thrilling journey. On a scale of 1 to 10, How would you rate this story? Let me know in the comments below. Your feedback inspires more epic tales.